Good morning. This is Laura, Happy Dreamer. I am wanting to do some watercolor for my autumn journal that I've been working in. So I went into the backyard and clipped some things out of our yard. This is Nandina. Let's see. These are the Nandina berries that will turn red. This is just an oak leaf from our neighbor's oak tree. These are live oak leaves from our tree. These are Chinese tallow from our tree. It has really pretty fall foliage. Yeah, it's made of foil. Foliage, but it's not a very sturdy tree. Pecan. We have lots of pecan. I clipped one leaf from one of my crown of thorns plants. A friend of mine gave me 3 crowns of thorn or crown of thorns plant. I don't know, whatever the plural of that is. This is Pittosporum, and my little rose is, my rose bush is producing. In focus. Rose hips. So I want to paint some rose hips. So that's what I want to paint. I'm going to use a variety of papers. I don't think I'm going to use watercolor. I have this coffee dye paper. I believe this is from Dollar Tree. It's a marker. Oh, it's a sketch pad. I thought it was a marker pad. Oh, here's a marker pad from Hobby Lobby. It's a little smooth. I usually get these when they're 40–50% off. Tracing paper. I like the sound. Bristol. It's pretty chunky. So, I'm just going to take a sheet from each and then we'll get started. How are y'all today? I thought today was my art league day, and it wasn't, because I don't know, I get mixed up on dates. Anyway, it wasn't. So I thought, oh yay, I am going to do a watercolor playtime. So I am using the Winsor Newton travel pack. It's like a little travel palette that's well loved. I am using this one that I put together with probably Grumbacher Academy watercolors, and this one, which is also Grumbacher Academy watercolors. So those are my palettes. You can use Crayola. You can really use whatever watercolor you want. The pigmentation will be, maybe be a little bit different, but I mean, that's not the end of the world. I'm getting my brushes. I don't think that's the end of the world. So here's some brushes. Let me see here. I'm gonna break in a new one. So these Artist Loft come from Michael's, and I believe these blue ones Princeton Summit, Robert Simmons. I think those also come from Michael's, and I usually get them when they are on sale. So this little one is a size 2. This ratty one is a 4. I think this is probably also a 4. 4. It's just not as ratty. And then that's a 6, and this is an 8. So let's get going. I kind of want to test out this coffee dyed paper. Let me move this over here. I'll make sure y'all are in frame before I start. I think I want to try a little rose hip. So we have had some pretty intense drought here, and while I have watered, adjust you just a bit. While I have watered plants and things, it is definitely not the same as rain. It's just not. It kind of keeps things alive, but doesn't really thrive. Okay, so I think I'm gonna start with my number 6. Is that what this is? 4. Oh, my number 4 that's not so ratty. Excuse the slurp. And let's get that. Let's get that. And we'll see. So because this is not watercolor paper, the paint is going to behave differently. But I just want to use some thinner paper that I can put in my journal that's not super thick. I'm going to try to stay here. So with the green, let's see, where can we put you? I feel like I'm in a relatively tight spot. With the green, I'm going to say it needs to be a little more yellow in it. And with watercolor, remember, you start light and then you add your darks. So okay, here's the thing. Time out. I'm not going to make this hyper realistic, okay? I'm not a hyper realistic artist. I mean, hopefully it'll look like a rose hip when we're done, but I'm not going to stress out about this. I just want to kind of capture the gist of the rose hip. So I'm gonna just take as much freedom and go from there. I just kind of want the idea of a little rose hip that I can cut. I kind of want to fussy cut these is really what I want to do. And the less pressure you put on your brush, the finer lines you get. So let's get, this is kind of like a, I don't know what these are. I probably should have labeled them. I didn't, so there we go. I have no idea what I'm using. I'm using green. I'm using green. And then, let's see. This kind of widens out up here for the, so for these leaves, yeah. So when you just kind of press and then lift up, press and lift up. And then because this isn't watercolor, I'm not sure, watercolor paper, I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna take other paint on top. With watercolor paper, you can continue to add, whoa, that's too dark. Yikes. But you can see how it's soaking in. That is not what a watercolor paper would do, but I don't care because I just kind of want something am I filming? Yeah, I'm filming. Can we see? Yep, we can see. Okay. And if you want, just turn your paper. I actually like it on this coffee dye. This is just regular, I was gonna say typing paper. Does that date me? That dates me. I'm 54, that dates me. We had typing and word processing in high school. So yes, that dates me. And the computer programming that we did was DOS. So there you go. We thought we were state of the art. Okay. You can see how the water ran down, which I'm not particularly fond of. So maybe when I fussy cut, I'll just cut out this little bit, and that'll be okay. But I'm still gonna do the rose hip. This is not fine art, y'all. I'm gonna add one right up there. Now let's add some little bits of brown. I'm gonna mix the brown with the green just to kind of tone it down a bit. Maybe that's too dark. All of mine have little tips reaching over, sorry. If you want to absorb some of that water, go for it, because we're really just playing here. There. That's disappointing, but that's okay. It's okay. Some of these leaves, oh, that's an Andina. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm just gonna scooch over here because I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete it because I'm not happy with it. So this one is kind of a dead leaf, or dying leaf. How are y'all today? It is, well, it's cooler. To me, it feels gorgeous weather out there, but it's still gonna be in the 90s today. That's what happens when you suffer through 107 in all of that craziness that we had this summer. 90 feels kind of good. There. I'm going to dab some of this. When it's watercolor paper, like legit watercolor paper, it doesn't run like that. It stays, these fibers are all spread out, and the watercolor paper has tighter fibers, so it like stays put. But that's okay. I'm going to go on and try the rose hip. Why not? I'm here. So it is just a little round, little fat round guy. Or girl. I don't know what rose hips are. Yeah. I'm not happy with that. So this is the watercolor paper. And when you, this is dry, just like that coffee paper is dry. So you can see that when this is dry, it just stays, it doesn't bleed. It doesn't bleed because that's just the nature of the watercolor. But sometimes having messy things kind of gives it a little bit of a, I don't know. So there. So when that dries, you can do like the little brown bits. And it just, when you add the yellow or whatever that is, what is that? Raw sienna. That was raw sienna. Yeah, raw sienna. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. You can see that it's not leaking into the other parts of the paper. So with just regular typing paper that's been coffee dyed, it soaks through, it travels, and you know, it just doesn't look as tidy. If you want to use watercolor paper, use watercolor paper. I just wanted to experiment with different, you know what? I'm going to use this baby one. This is a 2. Yeah, this is a 2. I just wanted to experiment. So there you go. I'm experimenting. And if you want to just go on and put in, you know, some delineations, that's okay. This is not precious. This is just playing. But you can already see that even those, and I'm not even using very much water, I'm using mostly paint. But it's all right. I do like how this is turning out on the coffee dye. You're using, I mean I, not you, I am using a very light touch, like kissing the paper with just the tip of the tip of the painting, of the brush. And I think this is going to look pretty in a journal. You know, Edith Holden, if you know about her, she made diaries, like nature diaries, and I'm sure she used watercolor paper. I don't know what they had in the 1800s. I mean, that was the time of some really serious art happenings in the art world, so they probably had like legit minerals, but most paint these days does not totally include, just because they're carcinogenic, I believe. I think I read somewhere, well, I know I read somewhere, I just don't know where it is, that one of the thoughts on Vincent van Gogh's mental illness might have been due to inadvertently self-poisoning himself when he would lick his brush to get you know, ready for the next bit of paint, which is kind of sad to think about, because paint was like cobalt was actually made from cobalt and all that good stuff. So you just kind of keep layering. You're gonna get, you know, fuzzies, but that's okay. I have no idea what this is. This color down here is like a conglomeration of everything that was on that palette. And I just am continuing to add, oops, darks. That's kind of pretty. Maybe we'll do that over here. Oh, I like that color. It's kind of a army green. After this, we'll go to, we'll do an oak leaf, or maybe, no, we'll do a Chinese tallow. That's from our tree. I'm gonna leave it like that. I don't like that, but I do like the leaves. That'll be fun to fussy cut. Okay, so here's a tallow. Here's a tallow. Where's my other one? Well, did you fall on the floor? No. Oh, here. What do I want to use? Okay, this is what I'm using. I know, I'm crazy. This is tracing paper. This is gonna crinkle up, but I don't care, because I'm just gonna cut out each individual little leaf, and it's gonna be some crunchy goodness in my journal. So I'm gonna start with this yellow. I am using cadmium yellow medium. And I have all of these wonderful oranges and reds and things, but I'm gonna start off with cadmium yellow medium. Oh, I should activate my Indian yellow too. Okay. So, I wonder if you can, well, I'll do this part, and then if I need to add a piece of paper underneath it, I can. Oh wait, let's do this. There, at least that's solid. Okay. Alrighty, so we're just gonna draw the outline. I'm holding my paintbrush up at the top because it helps me it helps me to keep, or it prevents me from being heavy-handed. Remember, we are not making fine art. You can start seeing it kind of crinkle a bit. Let's plop in some orange over here. So where all of these little water puddles are, or paint puddles, the paint will collect, as you can see, in all of the little dimples. Let's see, let's get some red, orange. That's probably Geranium Lake and Geranium Lake and light red from Grumbacher. That's just what I'm putting right around the edges. This is kind of going fast. We do have a little bit of brown spots. Let's just drop in. I'm going to use raw umber. Raw umber has a bit of a red tinge. I get all of my, you can either go to Jerry's Artarama online. We have one about, I don't know, an hour away in San Antonio. And you can also get it, I think, from Hobby Lobby. I know that Hobby Lobby is really changing up their inventory. So yeah, yes they are. I want to do that one because that one is really kind of weathered. So I'm going to start with the raw umber. My ceiling fan is being persnickety, but now I want to be able to see it. Okay, and I can just cut this however I want. Okay, that went wild. I wonder, I know these are lighter lines. I'm wondering if I'd like to draw those in, but I don't exactly know with what. Maybe just like a gel pen. It would be white, but it might be kind of cool. Okay, this is Van Dyke Brown. Kind of want to plop in down here. Maybe up here. I'm going to put that over here in these little brownie spots. There we go. So once that dries, we can, you like my hand movements? Once that dries, we can cut that out. I'm gonna set that here. This is how, actually, or not. Set it over there. This is how this has turned out. This is like totally dry. I wish that that bothers me. Okay, this, what are we gonna use? This is the sketch pad. This is probably, this is probably gonna be like the coffee dye. Let's get something different. Let's do the marker pad. This will be our last one. So this is a succulent, this crown of thorns. And this was, so our younger three were born in Uganda and lived there for 3, 4, and 5 years. And the guest house where we stayed was surrounded with crown of thorn bushes, and the pieces of the stalks are like huge. They're low growing, but the stalks are big, and they legit have thorns. You don't want that. So here's a little tip. If you don't feel like winging it, there's no reason why you can't put down a leaf and just trace it. No one is going to call the police, the tracing police, the art police, the whatever. So I'm going to do that. And then that way, when it's time to cut, you can cut. I know that's very, very light. There. And then the veins, this is kind of the center. The veins run down up here, and then they branch off. And then they have all the little veins. So, I don't know, can you see that? I'll zoom in. Oh, yeah, no, you can't see that. Let's see. Let me do this. Can you? A little bit, maybe? Yeah. Okay. So just trace. Let me zoom you back out. There. Alrighty. I'm still using my Fatso brush. What is this? That's an 8. Is this an 8? Ooh, no, let's use my Fatso. They do make them even fatter than this. All right, so we have some reddish in there. So we are gonna use, I'm gonna use some Van Dyke Brown, no, raw umber and burnt sienna. Probably a little Van Dyke Brown. But I'm gonna use the raw umber first. And this is marker paper that came from Hobby Lobby, and I am just literally painting inside the lines that I sketched out, that I traced. So don't be afraid to trace if you don't feel like drawing, or you're not confident in your drawing skills, then trace. And then you can add some pretty things to your journals, or I mean, I use mine for my journals, or I'm going to use these for my autumn scripture journal. I've been writing, been reading Psalms, and whenever something, this is, ooh, that's dark. That's Van Dyke Brown. But on this, you can really see it traveling, which is kind of cool. I actually like this marker paper the best, I think. Let's put in some burnt sienna. Let it all do its mixing thing. Oh, I like this the best. If you're not going to use watercolor, if you want something just really low key, this would be a fun activity to do with your children. If you have, you know, young kids, middle schoolers, upper elementary, that would be a really fun project. I used to teach art, so at school. So what you could do is just get some marker paper, gather up a bunch of leaves from your yard, whatever you have, take a little leaf safari walk around the neighborhood, pick up a whole bunch of leaves, and just have them trace. Wouldn't that be fun? Trace the leaves, and then when they're done, have them cut it out, put it on a, maybe tape it or clip it somehow. Oh, with clothespins, like those little mini clothespins, onto some string. And if you got something like some baker's twine, see what happens when I start thinking. Get some baker's twine and those little mini clothespins, or even big clothespins if you have them. That would be so cute. Oh, and then they could play with watercolor, and they can use Crayola or Prang. They don't have to use Grumbacher Academy. Academy is student grade, by the way. So this is all student grade, but it is more expensive. Well, I don't know if it's more expensive. The tubes, probably one tube costs probably as much as a palette of Crayola or Prang, but there's a whole bunch more paint in there. So, you know, it just depends. But you could mix all your colors, yellow and red, make orange. You can add a touch of green to it to gray it down. You could make brown by adding any complementary colors. So like green and red could make a brown. You would just add differing amounts of either one. Start with the green and then just add a tiny bit of brown until you get the color you want. Why am I not showing you this? Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm gonna let this dry. Okay, this just turned a corner. If you have kids or if you want to do this yourself, I'm just gonna use this scratch page. Let's do this. Let's do this thing. Okay, so here's some green. It is probably, it's not chromium oxide. It may be a sap green, but if you're using Crayola, just use the green. And you add some here, and then I'm gonna use just a bit of brown. No, we're doing red. I'm just gonna use regular red. Now I'm mixing it on the paper so you can see. But you start seeing, see how the red starts affecting the green? And if you do it on the actual palette, see how that made kind of like a fall-y green when the green is starting to turn? Here. I'll finish that leaf, but I just got Can you tell that teaching art to kids is like my thing? Lord willing, one of these days I'll be doing it again. So, okay, red. So if you do a bunch of red in green, well, voila, voila. Did you hear me? Voila. You have brown. That's why you can make, see? So you can make varying shades of brown with your green and red from Crayola just by adding a little bit more green. So we just added some more green. That was the first one. Now look at that. It's more green. And then let's add a little bit more green. I'm using the same green and the same red. So we have that brown, that kind of a green brown. This I added more green, and it's kind of similar to that. So there you go. Mixing 101. Complementary colors. So red and green are complements. Purple and yellow are complements. Blue and orange are complements. So you can do that and make a variety of colors. Y'all need to do this with your children. I'm just telling you, they would love this on a Saturday. Get some leaves. Look, I'm going to do this one. This one's a live oak because now I've been inspired. Can you tell I've been inspired? Yes, I get very excited about. So you just trace. This one has a chunk taken out of it. Trace it. Trace the chunk. So this is my live oak. It doesn't even matter if they draw hard and have really heavy, you know, pencil marks. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. I am going to start with raw umber and just mix straight on the paper unless you want them to mix, you know, on a palette. If you don't have like a plastic case, well, the plastic case sometimes gets used up pretty quickly. You can use a plate, either like a plastic plate or a dinner plate. This is Van Dyke, but you can, I'm just gonna put this at the bottom. That's all I'm doing. Y'all, do this with your children. Please, 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 please. So in 2000, this is all I'm gonna do for today because now oh gosh, now I miss teaching kids. I miss it. But it's been good for me to be present with my kiddos, my children, our 5 boys throughout the years. What else do I have? I think we did Nandina. Okay, look, you can even trace, if you have Nandina, I mean, Nandina is really a fairly common plant. I'm gonna scooch this over. Lay it down. You can even kind of, your child can very carefully, I mean, this is brittle. Okay, so these are branches. Add some berries, add some berries, add some berries. And then you can paint this. There are so many things you can do. Right now, even in South Texas, leaves are falling. So, and if you live in a different area, you probably have a wider variety of trees. I have live oak. Our neighbors have pecan. This one is starting to fall apart. We have pecan leaves. This is, I believe, a red oak. We have a bur oak. So have fun. I'm going to stop here because now I'm kind of hyper. Have fun. I'm going to continue. And if you have children, if you've stayed here this long, this is your assignment, your homework assignment. Go pick leaves out of the yard with your kiddos. Get your Crayola paint. And if you don't have Crayola paint, go splurge. Take your child to Walmart, get a little container, and learn how to mix. As you see this dry, I mean, look at that. This is marker paper, which they may have at Walmart as well. I know they have inexpensive watercolor paper, like in the art section, not the school supply section. So yeah, this does better than typing paper. So, and it's just this one came from Hobby Lobby, but I'm pretty sure Walmart will have something. And if they don't, just get a small pad of watercolor paper like this that has the decals in it, because they'll be very successful with this. Just know that the more complements you mix, the muddier it gets. So if you're really into it, get a pocket wheel color chart. Walmart has these. And these are called analogous colors. So if you say, okay, we're just going to use red and yellow, you can make a variety of shades. And then you can say, okay, now we're just going to use greens. And on the back, it tells you, like, this is green, this is red. Those are complements. And then you can turn it. And it continues. This is a triad, meaning these three colors look nice together. Or these three colors look nice together. Well, this is split complementary. This is split complementary. This is a triad. There's a tetrad and another tetrad. And then it tells you right here how you can achieve these tints. I mean, this is really very useful. So it's probably $5 or so. If Walmart doesn't have it, I'm sure Amazon has it. But they have all of the little things on primary colors, secondary, tertiary, aggressive warm colors, receding cool colors, hue, tint, tone, shade. Get a color wheel. Get a little pack of paint and a color wheel. There you go. The end. That's the end of my speech. Kids will love it. Promise.